What is an entrepreneur by necessity? An entrepreneur by necessity is a survival response under capitalism for those who have limited access to formal employment. There are a variety of reasons why some are forced to become self-employed or start their own business. While not obtaining a living wage from one source of employment is often a prevailing factor within this economy, the gig economy is yet another reinforcement of this phenomenon of the entrepreneur by necessity. Yet becoming and being a business owner is far different than working within the gig economy. But the gig economy may provide a psychological shift in mindset once someone starts imagining what is possible in obtaining an income through an alternate means than mere employment. Affected people often come from marginalized communities with limited access to basic necessities. For example, people with disabilities are all too often underemployed and underpaid, regardless if they have filed for disability assistance or not. In the United States, where there are right-to-work states, which its name, right to work, remains an oxymoron, by the way. People who miss one day of work for any reason, even if medically vouched for by a doctor's note, risk automatic job loss within a right-to-work state. For this reason, people with disabilities are affected more so than their able counterparts. Another example is that many trans folks find gainful employment difficult to come by due to the constant discrimination levied against their very existence. Lack of gainful employment, coupled with constant housing discrimination, creates disproportionately high rates of homelessness within the trans community, which self-employment or business ownership often remedies such woes. These were but two of many examples as to what drives people to become an entrepreneur by necessity. I too am an entrepreneur by necessity due to multiple factors pitted against me. Even though as a child I did briefly sell my artwork for pocket change, it wasn't exactly what I envisioned I would do as an adult functioning within a capitalist paradigm. Instead, I was much like everyone else. I expected to have a job. So, at age 16, I got my first minimum wage job at a restaurant where I doubled as a hostess and as a cashier. I was told obtaining such a job would look good on a resume because employers wanted to see some form of legitimate experience. In a way, this made me take low-wage jobs for granted. I assumed I would always have access to at least a minimum wage job. That assumption, however, was naive. After all, I had already dedicated myself to activism. Thus, by age 19, I was forced to navigate the added oppression of becoming blacklisted, or what some activists call whited out. The economic violence of becoming whited out didn't particularly hit me hard at that time because I was just starting college. Back then, the financial aid checks were much more generous than what is now given out. Plus, I had scholarship funds from the American Civil Liberties Union, also known as the ACLU. As time passed, I found sympathetic employers and gravitated towards wanting to work within the nonprofit sector, which wouldn't care about repression against me as an activist. I quickly found out that too many nonprofits did care about the level of my completed education. Far too many turned me away for not having a degree yet. And even when I had gotten my first associate's degree in a trade, they said their board of directors only permitted the hiring of workers with a bachelor's or higher. This internalization of classism and ivory tower elitism within the nonprofit sector was frustrating for me. Fed up and nowhere near obtaining a bachelor's degree at that time, I decided to turn what my then romantic partner and I had been doing for free into a business to start affording to pay our own monthly bills. Our efforts lasted for a while, but by 2009, the economic downturn of 2007 started to finally take a toll on us. By 2010, we were nearly broke and broken. Luckily, with the help of our community, within a few months, we were back on our feet again. It was at this time I proposed to my business partner and still lover that we should restructure our business so it could scale, as that would allow us to generate more income and not have to ever again endure what we had just survived. He disagreed, claiming it was against our mission statement. I then reminded him that this was supposed to be a business, not a nonprofit. I argued that we could still serve low-income clients by offsetting the costs through charging higher rates to business owners and well-funded nonprofits. I never convinced him, so I quit and left it all to him to run on his own as I went on to pursue my passion in the arts. I was tired of tech work anyway, but this attitude demonstrated that I took doing business for granted. Thus, I had no second thoughts about giving him full ownership and full equity of our business. We were a romantic couple after all, sharing our income. About a year later, he ended our romantic relationship. Devastated emotionally, the last thing on my mind was the issue of money. Eventually, the issue of money did dawn on me, and I chose to still give him all of the business with no more equity nor any dividends. I made this choice at that time because that was all he had, and he was barely surviving. Besides, within the original structure we originally founded that business under, it would not have been fair. Dualwave, the business I left, was supposed to eventually become a worker cooperative. And we had already began training 2 people before I left and before our romantic breakup. As a worker co-op, we made it where owners have to put in work to earn a portion of the profits. I was no longer doing any work on the business, so it was not an option to divvy out money to me, even though I was the main founder who convinced him to co-found the business with me. It took only about 3 years for me to realize how much of a mistake that all was, as a poor economic decision. Because 3 years later, activists fighting rape culture on campus faced various attacks from campus administration, including economic violence. The administration even rendered a tenured professor into vehicle homelessness. As a mere student, I unfortunately soon followed the same fate as that professor. It was at this time I realized I should have taken a dividend upon exiting my first successful business, especially because my ex held so much animosity towards me that he did not even care I was now homeless due to the consequences of my art-based advocacy. All because I continued to refuse his advances to restart our romantic relationship again. I have since been chronically homeless off and on again. Though I had been given temporary housing by fellow activists, I decided to relocate to Maryland to chase a new budding love. After all, he even offered me the option to move in with him so I could have an easier time getting back onto my feet. It was a foolish decision on my part to keep trusting mere men, as I was being temporarily housed by fellow activists. Activists who understood and practiced mutual aid, a concept most men within this hegemony of patriarchy continually fail to comprehend. I should have stayed within my activist community. However, I knew the strain I was causing my community. So I figured it would be easier on us all to move in with my new boyfriend, especially after he insisted that he could carry all of the living expenses. I was a bit anxious, though, as I had never been in a relationship yet where I did not contribute half towards our life under capitalism. But my new boyfriend and some activists convinced me to calm down about my worries of potential power dynamic imbalances. Though some activists warned me that my worries may be well-founded, given the rampant mentality of middle-class cisgendered males who disproportionately benefit within this biased economic paradigm, and to which leave them complacently blind to their privileged transgressions. Yet I opted for the more optimistic view. Love would be enough. I became a transplant in Maryland, despite my personal reservations about the area, since my love was there. Eventually, Upon settling in, I started to regain my focus. I soon decided this unexpected blessing was a perfect opportunity to try out some business ideas. However, bad luck struck me down as my health began to fail. In about a year, I finally regained my health back. But I then made an ill-fated decision to get a tooth implant. It turned out to be a bad decision because we could only afford the procedure once. I was about to learn why you should never buy anything that you cannot afford to pay for twice, especially in the healthcare industry. The procedure was a botched operation. I had just gotten my health back, only for it to be taken away again over a greedy malpractice. The dentist refused to redo the operation and refused to refund me. As time passed, the infection spread, and I was once again fighting for my life. This downturn in my health once again ruined my plans to start a business, but I soon found an alternative way to make money with cryptocurrency trading. I could literally trade cryptocurrencies from the comfort of my bed, and while I didn't have much to start trading with, I could at least turn what little I had into something more. I never got the chance to trade my boyfriend's funds though, because soon after the 2016 winter holiday season was over, he suggested to end our relationship. Between December of 2016 up until March of 2017, our relationship remained in limbo until he explosively and abruptly ended it forever in the beginning of March 2017. Thankfully, he allowed me to stay under his roof. I had not yet been able to afford my corrective surgery and was still facing potential death from an otherwise preventable infection that was creeping out from my jaw towards my heart. So, I kept trading with what little I had to put into the cryptocurrency market. The massive bull run of the cryptocurrency market unfolded, and I was ever more hopeful that I would finally reach my $10,000 goal to move out on my own again, not to mention get the surgery I needed. Right before the massive drop within the cryptocurrency market, I noticed the impending fate of the market. All I had in gains was about $6,000 worth of US dollars. That was barely enough to cover my quoted surgery costs. If I spent it, I would be starting with nothing all over again. I was not sure when my ex-boyfriend would tell me my time was up in regards to having a place to stay, as he never gave me a definitive answer, though I kept asking. Instead, he gave me false reassurances. He kept to that script for so many months that I finally began to believe him. I was still scared to liquidate all of my cryptocurrency portfolio investments, as doing such would render me back into a position of having absolutely nothing but the clothes on my back. So, I opted to fundraise for my surgery instead and thereby keep my portfolio of cryptocurrency investments within the cryptocurrency market, just in case I needed it to prevent me from falling back into homelessness, let alone having to go through and endure something as terrifying as street homelessness. While I am willing to risk enduring vehicle homelessness, I remain terrified of becoming street homeless. So I wanted peace of mind, that I would always have just enough to keep me out of street homelessness. That $6,000 was literally all I had left to my name, with no other income coming in. I made that choice knowing that the impending cryptocurrency bear market would possibly turn my portfolio from 6 to 3,000, as my technical analysis was predicting at least a 60% drop. Not knowing if or when I would be thrown out and lose access to a computer to trade cryptocurrency with, I left my funds inside the market, as I would rather wait out a bear market than miss buying back into the next bull run cycle. For me, this was peace of mind in not having to make sure I retained the ability to time the absolute bottom to re-enter into a profitable position. At the absolute height of the cryptocurrency bull market, my portfolio was about 8,000 worth. And at the recent lowest bottom, it was about 2.5 worth. I stand by my choice, though, due to what transpired over that time frame within my personal life. My ex-boyfriend secretly plotted to render me street homeless on the shortest amount of notice possible, unbeknownst to me at that time. If it was not for an email from the landlord, I would have never gotten any notice. A month before the lease was to be renewed, I got an email from the landlord spelling out the steps of vacating the property. That was when I approached my ex-boyfriend as to what was going on. Was he kicking me out all of a sudden? Or was he moving and going to allow me to stay under his roof still at the new place? I expected the worst because he had not mentioned this to me, and he did not even take me to look at the properties he was considering renting. From those hints alone, I feared the worst. I was right. He said I had a month to find housing accommodations elsewhere. This was horrible timing, as I had just finally gotten the life-saving surgery I needed, thanks to an anonymous, wealthy Bitcoin donor who donated the funds in full to me so I could continue holding my cryptocurrency portfolio gains as an extreme backup plan in preventing me from falling into street homelessness. I couldn't afford to stay anywhere in the DC area, with just barely over 3,000 to 4,000 worth in my current cryptocurrency portfolio at that time. I was extremely worried as to what would now unfold against me, because I knew in my health recovery that I was not yet able to endure becoming vehicle homeless through the winter. The lease was ending on December of 2018, just as the seasonal cold fronts would sweep the nation's capital. With nearly no options left, I reluctantly accepted temporary housing from my mom. My mom and I do not have the best of relationship as a mother and daughter. So this was among my last-ditch options, rather than risk death due to the current state of health I was in. So now, here I am, yet again, dealing with housing insecurity, not knowing how long I have under this roof. I started trying to think of business ideas that could be started on the cheap, that was within my skill set. I almost executed on a product idea I had, but just as I was gearing up to take action, a much better offer presented itself to me. A direct sales opportunity as an affiliate marketer in the exact market I had been trying to get into for years. Real estate. I did not hesitate at this chance. Now I'm self-employed and working on a complementary business startup that will package direct investment products and services for portfolio management and financial education. Just like the real estate education I have now affiliated LeftRelay with. This is a perfect business model, not just because of the economic violence levied against me for who I am and what I stand for, but also because of my chronic illness, endometriosis. Being afflicted by such debilitating pain, even if only for 4 days out of each month, requires me to find a flexible work environment. A home-based online business is the accommodation I need to succeed. I am an entrepreneur by necessity. If you are an entrepreneur by necessity too, leave a comment. If you wish to find out more about the real estate educational packages that LeftRelay sells, click the link in the description.